All right, welcome back to the channel and to another DIY. I've already put one of these out doing the rear brakes on a Golf Sportwagen or all-track model. This time I'm going to be doing a big brake upgrade on my new daily. This is literally the same car that I had, only much cooler than the last one. I was very sick of the slush box automatic in the last car, as well as some other typical SEL issues on these wagons, leaky sunroof, things that just really pissed me off. So I ended up getting rid of my 2017 front-wheel drive Sportwagen for a 2017 all-wheel drive Sportwagen S. This one came with some awesome performance upgrades as well. I won't spend a lot of time on that in this video, but it does have a bigger turbocharger on it and is much, much quicker than my last Sportwagen. In this video, however, my factory brakes are completely cooked. I don't know how well you guys can see in there, but they are rusty and gross, and I have almost zero pad life left. So I am going to be upgrading, well, first of all, I'm going to be changing out the front brakes, but I'm also going to be upgrading them to a 312 millimeter rotor size from a 288. So roughly a 24 millimeter, which I think is right around an inch. This is a pretty common upgrade on these cars. The base Mark 7 Golfs and some other models got the 288 millimeter rotors. The base GTI of the same generation, all-track Audi A3, some other models got 312 millimeter. The only difference is the caliper carrier itself. So I'm just gonna jump right in, get started. This will be both a DIY on how to change your pads and rotors, as well as for anyone that wants to upgrade from 288 to 312, this will be a quick DIY on how to do that as well. All right, car's jacked up, wheels are off, car's on jack stands, basically ready to start taking the old stuff off here. Before I do so, I want to show quickly the parts that you need to do this. So I bought new pads and rotors, got these from Rock Auto as per usual. These are the PowerStop Z26, so they're fully coated rotors, and they're carbon fiber ceramic pads. This was a pretty cost-effective setup. I think pads and rotors were, I don't know, less than 150 bucks for all this. And I've read pretty good things about this setup, especially for a street car. Obviously, this thing's a wagon. It's my daily. Not going to be doing anything besides maybe some heavy street mountain driving. So I think these should be fine and definitely a big upgrade over stock stuff. Now, the carriers that you need, those are right here. I actually got a full set of carrier brackets and calipers from eBay for less than $100, which was a pretty good deal. So I actually have a full spare set of calipers now, in case anything would ever happen with these. One tip is that the GTI parts are exactly the same as, say, an all-track or an Audi A3. They're just painted red. And because they're painted red, everyone wants to pay more for those. So the same calipers from a GTI are 200 plus, just because they're red, they're from a GTI. I found the most cost-effective way to do this is try to find calipers or just the carriers from an Audi A3. These are from a 2015 A3, I think convertible. Just do your research, but there's a lot of different models that run these same 312 millimeter brakes. So I was able to get a really good deal on these. Again, I think it was 80 to 90 bucks off eBay for the full calipers and caliper carriers. I'm just using the carriers because the calipers are exactly the same. The only difference is the bracket. So how you know if you have a Sportwagen or a Mark 7 Golf and you want to do this upgrade, the only thing you really need to check is in the back of your factory caliper here. There's going to be a little number, which is 57. That's the size of the piston in the caliper. As long as your factory caliper on your factory 288 millimeter rotors is a 57 millimeter piston, you are good to go. This is exactly the same caliper that's on the GTI and the all-track, etc. Just this carrier is different. The carrier that's on the bigger brake cars just comes out a little bit farther. And I'll show a comparison in a second once I get this stuff off. But again, if you have a 57, you're good. If you have a 55, you're not good. You can't do this upgrade. I'm not sure exactly which cars have the 55 versus 57 millimeter caliper, but I know for a fact most of the sport wagons of this generation have the 57, and this is a super easy upgrade. You just swap the bracket out and you're good to go. So I'm actually gonna paint these carriers quick. I tried to clean them up as best as I could. You could see this one looks okay, but the rest of them I couldn't really get cleaned up. So I'm just gonna paint them flat black, then put them on the car. Eventually I may paint the calipers too, but for now I just wanna get this done because this thing really needs brakes. All right, we got all the old stuff out. I did not film it because the process is very easy. I started with the 2 carrier bolts, 13 millimeter bolts. They're not very tight, so you just break those loose by hand. Once those caliper bolts are off, you can pull the caliper up. I did disconnect this top brake hose here, and then the caliper can just sit down on the ground. You don't have to worry about propping it up or anything. So I would definitely just pull that clip out, and then you can just set the caliper on the ground, not worry about it. That gave me access to the old carriers. These bolts are torqued pretty tight. You need to use a breaker bar and a good amount of force to get those off. I put a little bit of PB blaster on as well. So 2 caliper bolts first, then the 2 carrier bolts. You can pop the pads out. There's this little T30, I believe, T30 or T35 or something, Torx bit that holds the rotor in. Take that out, and then basically everything just comes off. You can see just how bad my factory pads were. I believe these are still the stock pads. They were basically kicked. So very excited to be getting the new stuff on. All right, here's a quick comparison. I already got one of my new rotors dirty, but here's a quick comparison of the new rotors, the 312 millimeters versus the old rotors. A little bit hard to tell in this picture, but you can definitely tell, obviously the new one on the left is bigger. Again, it's like 24 millimeters bigger. And then here are the carriers. I just gave this one a coat of flat black high heat paint. You can see the difference in size too between the stock Sportwagen carrier and the 312 millimeter carrier that I got off an A3. This is going to be a lot better stopping power than the old stuff. Now we are going to get it all thrown on the car. It's always a good practice to put a little bit of anti-seize on the hub here. So I'm going to do a little bit of anti-seize on here, and then I am going to put the new carriers on, or the new rotors on, then the new carriers, then I will put the pads in, and then I will compress the piston on the calipers to get that over. I'll cover that in a minute. I'll throw it on a time lapse here while I'm getting everything kind of bolted up. All right, as you guys can see, and you saw in the time lapse, the new rotors are on, the bigger carriers are on, and the new pads are on. I like that these new pads have this metal backing. Really the only thing left is we're gonna go ahead and compress the caliper, the piston and the caliper there, using this tool. This end will go here, this will go here. I'll throw that on the time lapse and show how that's done, but that will just push the caliper back in. Probably put a little bit of grease on the back of the pads too before I put the caliper back on. And one thing you do want to do is, I have my hood open now, you do want to unscrew the cap to the brake master cylinder. That way when you're pushing the caliper piston in, if any fluid, you want any fluid to run out, it's not a good thing to try and compress the piston and not give the fluid anywhere to go. So hopefully none does run out, but it's more just kind of insurance. So that will be it. I'm going to go open that up and then compress the caliper, put a little bit of grease on these pads, put the caliper on, and we will be buttoned up. All right, we are all done. Everything is tightened up and greased up. I did end up greasing the pins as well as the back of the pads. And I used new hardware. They give you zinc plated hardware in the kit for the power stop pads. So it's got new hardware. They are 14 millimeter instead of the 13 millimeter that the car came with, but whatever, new hardware. I like it. I get a really good feeling of putting new parts on a car that I just bought because it just makes me feel like I'm restoring it and giving it kind of the attention it deserves. It just looks so much nicer. But yeah, that's it. So anyone doing this, super easy. You just need the carriers, everything bolted up exactly like it was supposed to. Torque the carriers down to 148 foot-pounds, and then the calipers onto the carriers, those are 26 foot-pounds. Very happy with it, and now I'm going to go take it for a drive and make sure, probably bed the brakes a little bit and make sure everything feels good. So that's it. Hope this helps anyone out that's trying to do this. There's a lot of posts about this online, and I did a lot of consolidating of kind of various forum posts and stuff, but when it comes down to it, as long as you have a 57 on your caliper and you know you have 288 millimeter rotors, you can easily go to 312s. You just need that carrier off of one of the models I listed, you know, GTI, A3, All-Track, etc. And you can do this on the cheap and get much better stopping power. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next video. A lot to come for this new daily as well. I will officially kind of do a walk around and show the car at some point, but stay tuned for that video. This thing's pretty quick for what it is. All right, thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.